We're going to come back on the other side of all the latest news and be joined by Citizen Kelly. Dear President Trump, please don't let Rahm Emanuel bully you on sanctuary cities. Powerful segment coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back in, folks. Good to have you with us as we get right back into the conversation. Time's flying by today. Lots of great conversations. Appreciate you being with us. Our number is 617-266-6868. We are joined by William Kelly, better known as Citizen Kelly. Columns he does, and we're talking about one of them today. He does radio. He does all kinds of activity, does videos, commentator, critic, entertainment critic, veteran TV producer, senior media strategist, be-all, end-all in the media. Citizen Kelly, how are you, sir?
Wonderful. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. I think Trump could use you maybe as his press secretary.
Yeah, I think guys like you and me are more dangerous outside of the administration.
You're right about that.
That's why they're trying to shut us down. But the good news is that we have the First Amendment, and I think as the more we use it, the stronger we are.
Let me. You're absolutely right. Let me get to your piece that you did. I believe in the Daily Caller. Yeah. And dear President Trump, please don't let Rahm bully you on sanctuary cities. Let's go through this point by point because it's a powerful piece. It's very important, and it is fundamentally outrageous that these mayors would say we're going to keep our sanctuary cities. How do they justify it after Kate Steinle, just the one example of many others who've been murdered by illegal criminal aliens? So let's go to that. First thing is that he claims, does Emanuel, that Chicago will always be a sanctuary city, even though the president says we're going to deport the criminal illegal aliens. Now, anybody in their right mind is going to say, I'm not going to protect criminals, and they're all criminals, but the criminals who are violent, they have to go first. Why would anybody try to protect them?
Well, this is the Orwellian doublespeak that we've been living under in the city of Chicago, really, for my entire life. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, and sadly, a lot of this has almost become normal, the new normal or the old normal for people who live in Chicago. It took a Herculean effort to take our country back. We finally did it. Obviously with the help of Donald Trump, we probably couldn't have done it without him. That is for sure. But now we have to take our cities back, and I can honestly say that's where the real fight is going to take place. And it's going to be a hell of a lot tougher to take our cities back than it was to take our country back, because in cities like Chicago, it's going to be hand-to-hand combat, let me tell you. The whole term sanctuary city is so disingenuous. Chicago's not a sanctuary for anybody but the criminals and the corrupt politicians. Law-abiding citizens, women, children, police officers cannot walk down the street without fear of being shot at. We've had thousands upon thousands of shootings and murders in the city of Chicago. I mean, since Barack Obama became president, and he, claims the South Side of Chicago as his home. I can honestly tell you that the South Side of Chicago and now under Barack Obama, under Rahm Emanuel, has never been more unsafe.
Yeah, and that's the tragedy of this, is that his policies are no answer, such as they are. But
right.
while we talk about this, Rahm Emanuel has set up a legal defense fund for illegal immigrants,
right.
And this is money, millions of dollars, by the way, but it has been put aside, as you point out, for Chicago property tax relief after a $600 million property tax increase. There was supposed to be relief. That money's now going to illegal aliens.
Exactly. Once again, it shows that, if nothing else, the Democratic Party has simply refuses to learn the lesson of the November presidential election, and that is that middle-class Americans are finally fed up. Many of them voted for Barack Obama twice. So the claim that somehow these people are racist is obviously absurd on its face. But these are people who just have said enough is enough. We cannot continue to subsidize illegal aliens, refugees, and this corrupt political class that's controlling the whole thing from up top, crony capitalists and crony politicians, and the only people paying the bills are middle class people. Unfortunately, the middle class is shrinking as a result, and as you correctly pointed out, as you saw in my article there, Rahm Emanuel is taking the money that was meant for property tax relief and for middle class homeowners in the city of Chicago, the dwindling middle class in Chicago under Rahm Emanuel, and giving it, devoting it to illegal aliens. It really is, and this is kind of an overused phrase now, but I grew up as a child in Chicago. This was the eternal question I kept asking myself: are they really that stupid, or are they doing it on purpose? And the question, and when it comes to Rahm Emanuel, there's one thing that we all agree on: he's not stupid. So you really have to ask yourself, what's the end game here? What is the strategy behind destroying the American middle class in favor of illegal aliens, and in many cases criminal illegal aliens? What's the end game?
Well, that's always the case, and I don't know. I think the end game is that they think, I guess, that these people will become citizens at some point, and therefore voters, and therefore they want government programs. Democrats give government programs. They want the Democrat voters increased by using these illegal. That's it.
Exactly right. In the case of Rahm Emanuel, and we don't have to make this 100% Chicago centric, because obviously the sanctuary city issue is a national problem. But in the case of Rahm Emanuel, he wants to get reelected. There's no question about it. I believe Rahm Emanuel still wants to be president of the United States, and if he can get reelected mayor of the city of Chicago, I bet you'll see Rahm Emanuel on the national ticket in 2020. And the only way that Rahm Emanuel can get reelected mayor of the city of Chicago is if he can flood the city of Chicago with illegal aliens and make them voting citizens before the next mayoral election. So yes, you are 100% correct. That is the end game, and I think it's patently unfair to middle class Americans.
It's much so. But you also point out in your piece, William, that in fact the African American population in Chicago is fed up with Rahm Emanuel, and I don't blame them. Let's talk about that tape. That was stunning to me.
Yes.
He held back this tape until after his election, when there was an officer, and people have to remember this. I mean, I watched it in amazement. There was an officer, a young fellow, African American fellow, had a knife. All right, that's fair game. And he's walking. Sure. He's still about 30 feet at least away from the officer. The officer shoots him twice. He falls to the ground. He hadn't used the knife in any threatening way up to that point on the video. So there were other ways to try to talk him down. He didn't do that. He shot him. But then he's on the ground, and the guy unloads the entire chamber into this guy. It must have been about another dozen bullets that went into his body. Now, if that isn't a capital murder, what is?
Well, there's a couple of different things to be said about that particular case. One is it just so happened at that time in Chicago history, we had a mayoral race that was taking place. I was one of the candidates. I was the Republican candidate in the race. I had just the week that occurred, I had busted the caps in the race. I donated $100,000 to my own campaign, busting the caps. I think that Rahm realized that if this tape became public, that could very easily sway the election. And Rahm, in my opinion, suppressed that tape and quietly paid off the family using, obviously, City of Chicago taxpayer dollars to remain quiet. That's my belief. It is public record now, obviously. Once again, extremely cynical, extremely disingenuous to the voters of the City of Chicago. Certainly not transparent by any definition. The Chicago police, my God, who would want the job at this point? Rahm promised additional police officers, but instead he's cut the number of police officers. We hear a lot about PTSD, and I believe that applies to Chicago police officers to the extreme. So when you have a police officer that is essentially in a war zone, okay, being shot at on a daily basis in the city of Chicago, and you put them out on the street, and you have essentially drug-crazed criminals running up and down the street in the middle of the street, waving weapons, guns, knives, what have you. The idea that a Chicago police officer would react by firing his weapon, does not. If you really kind of put the whole stress of that situation in its proper context, you really can't be too critical of a Chicago police officer firing his weapon.
Maybe you could say that, William, about the first two shots when the kid was coming closer, but then when he's lying on the ground just to empty the chamber into the kid, I mean. Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. When you have thousands upon thousands of shootings and murders upon murders in the city of Chicago, the nerves of a police officer, I could definitely see where the nerves of a police officer would get perhaps a little shaky, and that's why when I ran for mayor anyway, I said that we need more police officers instead of taking the police officers whose nerves, in many cases, I believe in this case certainly, a police officer whose nerves were already shot, and putting him out on the street under these circumstances, double overtime. What we really needed was more police officers who would be able to hopefully, alleviate the stress of these situations. So,
what I would say,
again, we can second guess the police all day, and God knows the national media has been doing a good job of that for quite some time now. But I really believe that in the end of the day, when it comes to crime in Chicago, it's really the blame needs to be laid at the feet of the drug-crazed criminals.
Well, there's no question.
Wild.
No question. Yeah. And I'm a huge supporter of the police. I just take that case as one that stands out like a sore thumb. But what you need to do then is maybe rotate police to work in the better neighborhoods for a few weeks, and then go back into the more dangerous neighborhoods for a few weeks, something like that, to give them a reprieve. But the bottom line is going to have to be that they've got to confront the real problem, which is black-on-black crime. I mean, the 92.8%, according to the FBI, of murders of African Americans is by other African Americans.
Amen. And that also. Thank you for bringing that up. It's at great risk of being called every name in the book. The truth is that also highlights the huge disingenuousness of this debate. Because in the city of Chicago, you can have dozens of shootings every weekend. You can have
nobody says a word
of shootings, and nobody says a word. But all of a sudden, when you have a white police officer shooting a drug-crazed criminal, then all of a sudden, then you have the national outrage.
Well,
And,
stay right there. I'll come right back on that point to you. We'll want to continue with what Rahm Emanuel is doing with his task force he set up to help illegals. Amazing. Mike Siegel in with Citizen Kelly at citizenkelly.com. You're welcome to call 617-266-6868. Should American cities be sanctuary cities protecting illegal alien violent criminals in violation of the president-elect's order? Stay with us. More coming. And we're back at it, folks. Good to have you with us. Mike Siegel here as we get back to our conversation with Citizen Kelly, citizenkelly.com. And he is here as a citizen of Chicago, ran for mayor, and has done a great piece for the Daily Caller about sanctuary cities and Rahm Emanuel, who seems to be leading the charge along with Bill de Blasio in New York on that very issue. And how can we be defending a policy of protecting people, number one, in the country illegally, and number two, committing crime, violent crime? Tell us, if you would, Citizen Kelly, about this Chicago task force that he started, Rahm Emanuel, to supposedly coordinate legal, health, and employment services for the immigrants and refugees in the city. I mean, is he doing that for the African-American community in the inner city? Is he doing that for the white community? Who's he doing it for?
Right, yeah. It really is a question that that needs to be answered. The problem is that as a credentialed journalist in the city of Chicago, every time I go to one of Rahm Emanuel's press conferences to ask a real question like the one that you just asked, his security physically throws me out of the room. So it's, and in fact, you'll get a kick out of this. If you haven't already done it, at citizenkelly.com, we have videos of me asking Rahm, with my media credential, hanging around my neck with our camera crew and our microphone with our mic flag and everything else. And his security officers will literally throw me out of the room, whereas other Chicago quote-unquote press, the so-called mainstream media, they'll just sit there at every press conference all day, every day, telling Rahm what a great job he's doing. The sad thing is that Chicago, used to be the city that worked, the city where, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. It wasn't exactly a utopia then, but I was proud to be a Chicagoan, and I still love Chicago with all my heart, and I believe that the majority of Chicagoans are good, by the way. I would not recommend to any of your listeners, though, to visit the city of Chicago with Rahm, currently with the current administration in place, because criminals are allowed to run free, literally. I mean, drug-free criminals are allowed to run down the middle of the street waving weapons at police officers, and the police have gotten to the point where they, sadly, and who can blame them? I actually don't blame them. Have gotten to the point where they realize that if they try to apprehend these criminals, that they are the ones who are going to end up in court. They are the ones who will end up being vilified in the media. They are the ones that will end up with their families receiving death threats.
Yeah.
And their careers will be destroyed.
Let me get to Frank, one of our callers. Frank, you're on WRKO, the voice of Boston, with Citizen Kelly. Hello.
Hi, this is Frank. How you doing?
Good.
Good to hear you on Sundays again, Mike.
Thank you.
It's always provocative. Well, I think this is going to stop when I'm kind of a new visitor to this Facebook. But one thing that just struck me, and it's been on the last 3 days, I've not checked the veracity of it, quite frankly. But apparently they have, it's either in Chicago or he's in the Chicago or the Detroit area. They've got this guy, they apparently call him a sheik or a Khan or something. He's got 4 or 5 wives, and he is on the public dole to the extent and degree of $398,000 a year. Now, if this gets out, and I pray to God that this is, well, I pray to God actually it isn't true, but if this is true, and I pray to God that it does get out, this has got to stop. I mean, this is just above and beyond.
Frank, appreciate the call and the comment. We could go on with stories like that forever, and they're absolutely sickening. Citizen Kelly, I thank you very much. Great to have you here. People should look at the Daily Caller piece that you did on your website, citizenkelly.com, and thanks for being with us, sir.
Thank you. Anytime.
Take care. I will do that, and I thank you very much. Yeah, what a mess in Chicago. I wanted to give you some background on Rahm Emanuel and what he's doing there. In the meantime, folks, if you have a mind to do it, a nice little Christmas or Hanukkah gift, Airing the Wave is my book on talk radio, my experiences in talk radio, the power of talk radio. But now it's called Airing the Wave, Talk Radio at the Dawn of the Digital Era. You can pick up a copy. I think you're going to really enjoy it as a talk radio aficionado. And you can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Google, Kobo, wherever books are sold online. I appreciate your picking it up. In the meantime, we're back again next Sunday. Have a great week. At the Voice of Boston, WRKO, Mike Siegel here. Remember to be good to yourself and the world will be good to you.